Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show, a business podcast for educators who want to live life on their own terms. Whether you're working on yourself, your money mindset, or trying to figure out your next move, the Dr. Will Show is your resource for leveling up inside and outside of the classroom. Tune in and subscribe. Class is always in session. Back again, people, is Michelle and more. If you have been listening to the podcast, you know we had her on before and we talked about her journal. And there's going to be links in the show note for you to go ahead and get that book if you have not gotten it. But recently, Michelle put on a retreat. I saw the pictures and I was like, yo, this is dope. And for those of you who are interested in putting on a retreat, that is the purpose of this episode. So for those who be listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Simplecast, Stitcher, Spotify, and Audible, will you please reintroduce yourself, Michelle?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me back. I am a mom, a mentor, and somebody that does a lot of things. And never in my life did I think putting on a retreat would be one of them, but here we are.
All right. So here you are doing what you've been doing. Those who have been following you on social media know that you are very active in the things that you are passionate about. What was the moment or the experience that sparked you to create Roots and Rise?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I was meditating and I just had a vision, just this vision of a retreat. And I've participated in retreats and I love retreats. I'm all about community. Full disclosure, I hate planning travel for groups. It's just not my thing. I'm very happy traveling alone and worrying about myself and not having to accommodate anybody else. So when the thought first came to me, I brushed it away. I was like, no way. Like, I don't want to plan anything for other people. Like, no thanks. And I just kind of ignored it and thought, it's just a thought. We have thoughts pop in our head and we don't have to, follow through on all of them. So I observed it and thought it was going to go away. And over the next couple months, it kept coming back. And I think it was part of me searching for my own community and really looking for women that were like minded and that were really going deep on their healing path. And you can read so many books and you can go to so much therapy, and eventually you need to do something to change what you've been doing. You just kind of plateau. Just like if you're dieting, you got to switch up your diet or you're going to plateau. You're exercising, you got to switch it up or you're going to plateau. So that's kind of where I felt like I was. But like I said, hate planning travel for others, ignored it. And I was doing a breathwork session with a friend. And afterwards, she told me something that she saw, while she was participating in the breathwork. And she said, it's so weird. I had a vision of you and me in Puerto Rico. And I hadn't said anything about this to anyone out loud. I thought, oh my goodness, God is going to keep getting louder and louder until I see this thing through. Like, holy moly, I'm going to have to do this.
Wow. So when you envisioned this retreat, what was the core feeling or transformation you wanted women to walk away from or walk away
Yeah.
with?
I actually have a partner that we did it together. We co-facilitated and collaborated on it. And I went to her with the idea. And like I said, I really had women like me in mind. And the thing that I needed and that I was going through was rooting in who I really am and remembering who I want to be. And sometimes in our role as women in society, whatever culture you're in, there's usually a pretty predefined idea of what woman should be like. And most women I know put themselves last. They never prioritize themselves. So I really wanted women to walk away feeling like they knew themselves better and also they had a better idea of who they wanted to strive to be.
So take us back. Walk us through the behind the scenes of what it was like to design this retreat. How did you select the location and the venue for Rise and Root?
Well, like I said, Puerto Rico just landed. That is where many of the signs I had said it needed to be. So it was never a question of where. A lot of friends also asked why Puerto Rico because we're doing it again next year. So we're already planning for the next one. And they said, "You're going to go to Puerto Rico again?" Yes, we're going to go again. It's a wonderful, magical, healing land, but also a lot of people don't think about this. If you're in America, you don't need a passport if you're an American citizen. So it's one less layer that busy women have to worry about. You don't have to worry about if your passport is up to date. As long as you have a valid ID, you can go. So definitely Puerto Rico. And then from there, we really sat down and thought about what experiences could we offer on the island that are going to give women that push into, who they really want to be. So we did some research and landed on a few non-negotiables.
Mm. So how did you okay. All right. So I had another question, but I'm gonna ask you, what was those non-negotiables?
Yes, sorry. So one of the things is we knew we wanted to have a day of stillness. We in our society, especially American culture, are so like busy, go, go, go. The calendar has to be booked out. Your productivity is a sign of your success. And few people are really intentional about pausing and being still. So we had a 4-day retreat, and one of those days was going to be completely for stillness, with meditating and workshops and journaling and, nothing to do outside of our accommodations that day. And we weren't sure how people were going to react to that, but it ended up being one of the most positive days that we got feedback on. So that was, like good affirmation that we chose correctly. And then the other thing we wanted to experience was making sure we give them something where they're going to have to be outside of their comfort zone and draw upon some courage. And the neat thing about that was we didn't realize at the time how much the community we built in the retreat would actually help them find the courage to do, those tasks. So there's some cliff jumping and some rope swings and rock sliding, and people were scared of heights. People had had previous experiences with rope swings where they got hurt, and everybody, for the most part, was super brave, really encouraging, and totally cheered each other on through that, which was pretty special.
So what were some of the challenges in planning a retreat?
I think it's just like planning anything else, whether it's a small party or a large professional development event. You can plan out as much as you want, and there will always be surprises and things that you didn't expect or something that doesn't go according to plan. I'm a perfectionist. So part of my work planning this retreat was accepting that things weren't going to be perfect, that things were going to happen that were outside of my control, but making sure I plan as much as I can on my end to minimize, what those things were. Honestly, the biggest thing I was worried about was it's Puerto Rico. They're infamous for having very long power outages for, turning off the water. So I did a lot of prepping with the group, reminding them we're on an island. Things may happen. We may or may not have electricity. We don't know. And luckily, none of those, major things happened. But I think it's all just mentally being okay with it and preparing the group for the unexpected. Expect the unexpected and be okay with it.
So how did you make the retreat both transformational and financially sustainable?
I love that question. Yeah. So one of the things that we agreed upon when I met with my co-facilitator, Jenna, who's phenomenal. I call her the yang to my yin. She's very extroverted and outgoing and has a great personality. We wanted to make sure that this retreat was accessible to women, especially women who had never attended a retreat before. So either women who don't put themselves first, maybe they're always like putting other people before them or they're prioritizing other people's needs. And we knew if our price point was too high, we were never going to get that group. So we pretty much figured out, what's the least amount that we can charge and make sure that all the costs are covered and that we're compensated for our time. And also, if that's still too high for some people, how can we make it even more accessible? So we had early bird pricing. We also had payment plans available, and we released it about 9 months before the date. So people had plenty of time to save.
Oh, I like that. I like that. So earlier you mentioned some of the activities that they participated in. What went into deciding those practices that would anchor the experience?
Yeah, that was really the fun, I think the fun part of the retreat. There's so much you can do in Puerto Rico. It's wild even now as we're planning for the next one. And what our strategy has been is we have a North Star. So, we're rooting and we're rising. And every activity is either helping women remember who they are or step into who they want to be. So, as we're looking at ideas and different experiences to take them through, is this really aligned with that? How is this activity going to take them closer to that feeling of being really grounded and rooted? In who they are and their past experiences, or stepping into and feeling very confident with that step into who they want to be.
So what were those days like, right? So you get these people in and you are working with them. What was the energy?
Oh, man, I love that group. So I do want to say before we all physically met together, we had Zoom calls. There was a WhatsApp group. One of the homework assignments was to reach out to somebody else and going on the retreat that you didn't know. So by the time we physically were all together, everybody should have known at least one other person or felt pretty comfortable with the group, assuming they did the homework. I always say this, when you go to Puerto Rico, the island just gives you what you need. And from the very moment you step off the plane, you just feel welcome. And it's the land, it's the people, maybe it's the sea breeze, the warm weather, but you just feel safe and held. And from that very first night, we had a welcome dinner out by the ocean. We watched the sunset over the water. And it was just like, all right, this is it. We are in this together now. And it's a sacred vessel.
Wow. So how did you make people feel safe enough to be seen, supported, and to open up to the healing work?
It's a great point or a great question. I think part of it is we set the tone before, going on the retreat through some of those Zoom meetings and some of the things being shared in messages. The other part is we started out, we called it a gradual buildup. So, we intentionally built the itinerary so that our first full day there, we were doing something that I thought was fun and low risk. So it was really a chance to, bond with the group. Like you said, you need to make people feel safe. And we actually did a bioluminescent based swim. So we went out in a boat and we were out on the water all day. And then we swam under the moonlight with the bioluminescence bay and the water, glowing. And it was a very magical experience. You're in nature, you're with each other, you have the Milky Way galaxy above you. You could see every star in the sky. And that was a great community day. I think nature does a lot to bring people together, and I think new experiences do a lot to bring people together. Nobody on the retreat had done that before. So it was completely new to every single one of us and really created a positive, safe, low risk thing to share with each other. And then throughout the day, we also had some like journal prompts that we were sharing out loud. So we had a long car ride. And in the car, we were kind of easing into those things like, like what are the things in your life that you kind of want to start seeing shifts in, which we had, mentioned before and kind of led up to the retreat. So that was like day one. And then slowly each day it kind of got more intense. And, the journal prompts got a little deeper and the workshops went deeper. But I think part of it too was my co-facilitator and I would always go first. So, we're kind of setting the tone and the example unless somebody else really wanted to share first. And I think that helped them too, seeing us be vulnerable and knowing like, okay, like they went really deep on that. And, it's not all roses and butterflies or rainbows and butterflies, and that's okay. So hopefully I would like to think that was part of it.
It's I'm hearing you talk about this and I'm having these pictures and I'm envisioning or trying to envision what has like I don't know if it's something coming to me like in a movie or something, but it's just interesting, to have these people fly to another country, even though we know it's part of the US and go through these experiences and commune with one another for a specific purpose and to have people like, yo, let's do this. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is several of the women said, wow, I didn't realize how badly I needed time with other women. They're always with their significant partner, they're always with their families, and several times throughout the weekend, women mentioned the power of just being with other women for an extended amount of time. And the same goes for men. There's so much research into why these same sex retreats are so powerful and impactful. And we, hurt in community, Bell Hooks said. We also heal in community. And I think that healing, it can't just be, going to a women's group for 1 hour on a Wednesday night. You really need to pull yourself out of your life and be enveloped and held by other women.
So when women leave Root and Rise, what do you hope they carry with them for the rest of their lives?
Well, we really wanted them to feel really strong and empowered and have clarity on who they want to be. But one of the best things was reading the post retreat survey. And, three of the women in the comments said it was life changing. One of the women was very unsure about her future career wise, and she decided during the retreat, she was going to take that job offer. And it's totally going to change her life because she's having to leave her city and, it's going to be a big shift in her lifestyle. And it was reading those kind of comments that I was like, wow, like we really did it. I kept telling Jenna, like, we did it. Like, this is wild. These people trusted us with their time and their money and their healing. And, we held their hand and we went down the rabbit hole and it was effective. Like, everybody got what they needed to get out of it if they were willing to put in the work. I really just hope that everybody walked away with a deeper trust in themselves, with a deeper understanding of the importance of community and having other women in your life, and hopefully feeling like worthy of investing that time and money in themselves and realizing it can't just be a once in a lifetime thing. They need to do it regularly.
Mm. So what is your advice or to someone who is thinking about creating a retreat, but they don't know where to start?
I think, like what I did, I started with the feeling like, how do I want people to feel? And I think if you create your, values or your non-negotiables of what you definitely want people to get out of your retreat and use that as your North Star, you'll be successful because from there, you just need to reverse engineer it. Because if you start with what location do I want or what activities do I want to do, there's a million places to go, a million things to do wherever you pick and you're going to get like decision fatigue. You're never going to end up going through with it because you're going to get overwhelmed with how many options there are. So you reverse engineer it. How do I want people to feel? What kind of people do I want to bring together? Like, who is this audience that you feels really needs this experience? I intentionally chose women. I really wanted women to experience sisterhood. And maybe in the future, that'll change and we'll offer different ones. But maybe other people want to build community in a different way and it's co ed. So, really figure out what that feeling is and who your audience is, and then reverse engineer it from there and just don't stray from that. We had actually a day that we planned and we had to reconfigure due to some things out of our control. This was luckily before we went on the retreat. And when we were figuring out what to fill that day with now, it was very easy to pivot and pick something else because we knew the feeling that we wanted on that day and what it had to lead to for the next day. Otherwise, we would have been like, trying to decide between 100 things to do.
So before I go, I want to circle back to the logistics. So when you're looking at tools or tech or things that you had to use or put in place to make this a reality, because once you had decided on this is the feeling, these are the things that we want to do, and now it's I got to get the hotel or I got to get these rooms or I have to get this venue or I have to do that. How did everything else fall into place?
Yeah. So, two things. I had a spreadsheet for most of, what I needed to keep track of for the retreat, but I also used a Monday board. I don't know if you're familiar with Monday, but it's like a project management tool. I love it's basically like a spreadsheet, but more collaborative. You can invite users and it has some advanced features. But if you don't have access to Monday, you can create a free account. If you just want to use a spreadsheet, you could also do it with a spreadsheet. And that really helped from the project management perspective because I use that to create clear timelines. So on a Monday board, you could do the same on a spreadsheet, but 30 days out, 60 days out, 90 days out, 6 months before. Um, Otherwise, it can be very overwhelming. So everything felt very feasible. And to people watching, like if you're a teacher and maybe you want to do a retreat over the summer or you have an idea, but you have a full time job, I also have a full time job. This was something that I worked on the weekends, at nights, and it felt very feasible for the most part because I had planned out exactly what tasks I needed to get done, depending on how many months away we were from the retreat.
That's all right. That's all right. At some point, I want to do something. I don't know what it is, whether it be a retreat or an event. I do want to get entrepreneurs together and organize something where we can talk about building a business that includes building a great life. Thank you, Michelle, for coming back and sharing your experience in creating Root and Rise.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. Now, people, you know how I do this. This podcast episode is going to be on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Simplecast, Citrus, Spotify, and Audible. I need you to share. I need you to listen. I need you to leave me some reviews and some stars because I'm trying to be found, because I'm trying to get Oprah on the show because I want her to know that we're doing big things around here. Again, I'd like to thank my guest, Shell and more, for coming on and dropping some more gems. So for you for checking out another episode of the Dr. Will Show. As always, people, invest in you, EDU, peace.